What's up, Lore Masters? Today I'll be breaking down a ship that I could have swore I'd already done a breakdown individually for, but apparently have not. My opinions on this ship have historically been contentious due to the way it was presented in Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. However, they have changed over time, so let's just get into it. The Nebula Class vessel has simultaneously been presented as one of the weakest and strongest ships within the fleet during the Next Generation era. We first see the Nebula Class Starship in the Next Generation episode, The Wounded. This is where a lot of the issues come from, however. It was at this time that the era of Federation pacifism was at its height. Vessels that were built at this time was during an era where the captain of the flagship stated point blank Starfleet wasn't a military. This mentality is even reflected in the design of vessels, including the weak armor of the Galaxy Class Starship, the fact that they made these vessels basically fancy apartments in space, and the limited combat scenarios we see Starfleet engage in, given that Starfleet was more than willing to accept unreasonable terms. Now the contention comes in when we start talking about the USS Phoenix. Many Nebula-class apologists will attempt to note that the vessel took a direct hit from Cardassian weapons when its shields were down. That is a fair point. Taking a hit directly to the hull is a big deal regardless of who attacks you. However, there is a difference between how powerful that hit could have been. The Cardassian Union at this point is arguably only a regional power. Cardassian technology was significantly behind that of Starfleet. We see this in multiple instances, but one example is how Starfleet is able to identify Cardassian ships, something that amazes a Cardassian captain. So it stands to reason that Cardassian weaponry would also be subpar compared to that of most Starfleet vessels. My problem is not that the Nebula class doesn't have the ability to be a formidable threat, it's that it isn't reasonable to assume that the first generation of ships were able to. When we take a look at Starfleet's mentality and the massive losses they would take in the future, it doesn't seem plausible that the Nebula class would be a military behemoth. Well, until the Dominion War at least. However, whether military juggernaut or not, the Nebula class was designed and constructed under the Yoyodyne Division and launched most likely between 2363 and 2367. It's possible that the class may have been a direct result of the Cardassian border wars, which had conflicts occurring off and on again during this time. There has been some question whether the Nebula predated the Galaxy. However, from what I can tell, there's more evidence than not that some form of Galaxy-class starship existed since the 2350s, and given the differences in technology and offensive weapons of the two vessels, it seems more likely the Galaxy-class came first and continued to be updated from the 2350s. Additionally, this would follow Starfleet's methodology of making similar but more modifiable starships from successful, popular designs. We see this with the Constitution and Miranda-class vessels in the mid to late 23rd century. Effectively, the Nebula class was most likely a poor man's Galaxy class with the ability to be refit and take on different roles. This would be unlike the Galaxy class, which basically was all the best technology available at the time. They just threw everything in, including the kitchen sink with the Galaxies, and were more selective with the Nebulas. As discussed, due to the modular construction of the Nebula class, it would fit a variety of roles, including transportation, scientific endeavors, exploration, and later would serve military roles. The Nebula class would be present at several confrontations, including when it got the shit beat out of it at the Battle of Wolf 359. Then, when Starfleet remembered how to build ships of war, a much stronger variant would be at the Battle of Sector 001. Additionally, Dominion War variants were present at the Second Battle of Chintaka and the Battle of Cardassia. Because I have to make sure to get my Captain Obvious award for the video, the Nebula class utilizes the same components as that of the Galaxy class. The vessel has the standard Starfleet saucer-shaped primary hull with secondary hull directly below it. Both the primary and secondary hull are connected via a pylon that also connecting two nacelles. This pylon also extends above the saucer section with an attached module, or superstructure, that could be replaced depending on what was needed for the nebula itself. The type of module ranges from scientific exploits to let's fuck up a Jem'Hadar's day, otherwise known as a combat or Dominion War module. The Nebula class would see a minor refit in 2375 due to the studio executives finally dishing out money for the show to begin using CGI. The Nebula would see a minor refit in 2375 to appear more like a Galaxy class, this likely due to possible upgrades given the growing threat of the Dominion. This class would also travel at the speed of plot, being able to go at some variation of warp 9 given whatever the writers would need. The original warp speed of the Nebula class appears to be 9.5. However, that speed would continue to increase as the Dominion War progressed until we see a Nebula-class ship pursue the USS Prometheus, not this one but that one, at warp 9.9. While I give the inconsistencies hell, this would show the power of the Nebula class and how powerful it could be once effectively upgraded. This vessel type would have similar auxiliary craft to that of the Galaxy Class Starship, including Type 6, Type 7, Type 15, and other shuttles. Additionally, it's possible that the Nebula class had a captain's yacht that can be seen on the ship itself. The type of bridge on the Nebula class is modifiable and dependent on ship variant and needs of the crew. On the Sutherland, for example, the bridge seemed extremely compact with the captain's chair in the middle, consoles both attached to the bulkheads on the back, and standalones available for the executive officer. There would also be an LCD TV that they pretended was a view screen that was installed directly in front of the captain's chair. On the USS Prometheus, not that one but this one, it would be much roomier with the captain's chair in the middle and two consoles stationed in front of the captain themselves. There would be consoles attached to the back right behind the captain's chair. Additional consoles would be stationed on either side of the captain. The view screen on the Prometheus, not that one but this one, would also actually look like a view screen. The ready room of the class is very spacious, similar to that of the Galaxy class, with a desk and similar display layout on the wall which can show whatever the captain needs. Generally, a couch or other comforts can be added based on the needs and wants of the commanding officer. And now, on to the most contentious part of the Nebula Class Starship. The problem we have is that we see the Nebula class in a limited capacity. Additionally, we have a few resources that contradict each other, and the use of the ship may not have matched what the original designers intended. In Alpha Canon, the vessel at least has one torpedo launcher on the secondary hull and phaser positions on the primary and secondary hull. We see a phaser emitter utilized, and we know that the Dominion War variant includes a superstructure module that is outfitted with an extensive amount of photon torpedoes. Additionally, we know the ship has a range of up to 300,000 kilometers. However, everything else can only be garnered from assumptions from what can be seen on the vessel on screen. The beta canon of the ship states that the weapon complement includes 8 Type 10 phaser emitters with 2 photon torpedo launchers. I would assume that this is not including the Dominion War variant that would add substantial firepower. Honestly, even if this is kind of iffy, it seems to fit what we see on screen. I'd be comfortable including this and saying this is what the ship has until we get more canon confirmation. Until then, it's going to remain a bit sketchy though. On the topic of beta canon, resources additionally say the ship would accommodate up to 750 officers and crew with a length of 442 meters, beam of 318 meters, and height of 130 meters. Among the ships that exist in the universe, we have the USS Bellerophon, not that one but this one, the USS Bonchoon, the USS Farragut, the USS Honshu, the USS Leeds, the USS Lexington, the USS Merrimack, the USS Monitor, USS Phoenix, USS Prometheus, the USS Sutherland, and the USS Tecumseh. According to Memory Alpha, the ship appeared in TNG 4 times, DS9 16 times, Voyager 4 times, and twice in the Star Trek films. And finally, the ship would have gelato machines installed on all variants in 2372. You're welcome. As always, guys, remember that in the end, all of our lives are just a story. Make yours a good one. Hey Lore Masters, I'll be taking the Lore Reloaded to the next level within the next few months. I want you to stay tuned and consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Lore Reloaded to get in on the ground floor of the Lore Reloaded cinematic universe. Stay tuned.